The White Bear Area Chamber of Commerce and On Location TV 19 are proud to present Your Business Matters, dedicated to your business needs. The White Bear Area Chamber is a nonprofit business organization serving as an advocate for the White Bear area and its business community. Now here is the Executive Director of the White Bear Area Chamber and the host of Your Business Matters, Tom Snell.
Welcome to Your Business Matters, brought to you by the White Bear Area Chamber of Commerce. Each month we interview community leaders and local business owners so you can be informed about developments in our community. Today I am pleased to welcome Patty Hall, the president of H2O for Life, and Paul Steinhouser to address issues related to water conservation, which is a big topic in White Bear due to the declining level of White Bear Lake. Recently, H2O for Life took on an aggressive project to cut water usage in our communities. We will discuss H2O for Life's aggressive water conservation effort and how it will benefit our community and White Bear Lake on Your Business Matters. So thank you both for coming to our program today. And as you all know, there's been a lot of discussion about the declining level of White Bear Lake and also its impact on our local aquifer, which is the body of water underneath the lake. And evidently the aquifer is also declining along with the level of White Bear Lake. And many policymakers are looking at that and saying that we need to do something about both the lake and finding ways to recharge our aquifer, which is again underneath White Bear Lake. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Now, there's a lot of discussion on various ways to do that, but the easiest thing that we can do is conservation. And that's why I invited you to our program today. And I'm going to start with Paul. Paul, you are involved in starting up a water conservation program that is connected with H2O for Life. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Sure. It's the name of our program is Race to Reduce, and that's an initiative to get people to be aware of how we use our domestic water and how easily we could significantly reduce what we use.
Now, Minnesota is the land of 10,000 lakes. We have all kinds of water. Don't we? We just had Lake Minnetonka was overflowing. Explain why it's important.
Well, first of all, that is one of the problems in Minnesota, the land of 10,000 lakes, is that we've always thought water was free and endless, but of course that's not the case. The important thing to know about the White Bear Lake and Prairie du Chien aquifer issue is July 22nd, there was a meeting where Perry Jones, the head USGS geologist, told us finally that he had put 4 sensors below the bottom of White Bear Lake, and all 4 of them showed that indeed White Bear Lake is seeping into the aquifer. And so the real issue is, we can pump from the aquifer, we just can't pump from the aquifer faster than its natural rate of recharge, and that's what's going on, and it creates these cones of depression that White Bear Lake is leaking into.
And it's leaking into the aquifer because the aquifer is at some tipping point or low point. Is that correct?
Right. A cone of depression, water underground seeps slowly, and a cone of depression is just where we're pumping it out at a rate faster than it can seep back in and fill the aquifer to its correct level. So what we need to do is reduce the amount of pumping, no matter what other ways to go about improving the lake situation. Reducing the amount we pump will help the root cause.
Well, how are we going to do that?
Well, that's
that's the $10,000 question. How are we going to get people to reduce pumping?
Well, I'll tell you what, all we need to do is have the awareness that we could reduce our residential water use, and I mean by half or more, without any change in our lifestyle. Matter of fact, if you would move your water cups, I want to show you something. If your house was built, or if your bathroom was installed after 1992, you're only flushing 1.6 gallons to remove the 6 or 7 times a day that you let's say, urinate 6 ounces, which is the average, what we're told. But if your toilet was installed before 1992, you're doing 3.5 gallons to remove this. And if your house was built before 1984 and you didn't clean out the toilets, you're flushing 7 or 5 gallons of water to remove 6 ounces of urine. That's as wasteful. Imagine that in the 10,500 households that make up Birchwood, White Bear Lake, and Montemedi, doing this 6 or 7 times a day to accomplish removing that. It just is as wasteful a thing as you can imagine. I'll remove these.
Okay, how about lawn watering? That was one I was interested in asking you about. When I was driving to work about a week ago, and it was pouring rain outside, and I think I counted 6 locations where automatic sprinklers were going in Montemedi and White Bear. How does that impact things, and can you tell me a little bit about lawn watering and how much water that uses?
Yeah, well, let's use Montemedi as an example. In the first quarter of 2013...
Montemedi is a smaller town on White Bear.
Right,
so,
I think
okay.
7,000 people, something like that.
Yep.
Right. In Montemedi, the first quarter, January, February, March of 2013, they pumped 40 million gallons of water for the domestic use. In the third quarter, July, August, September, they pumped 124 million, so 3 times as much just to water the lawns. And you can go online to look at how you should be watering your lawn, and most people way overwater it, and they do it at the wrong time of day, so they're wasting water. It's again, it's an awareness thing, but we are wasting water that wouldn't change our lifestyle at all to water the lawns at 7 in the morning instead of 4 in the
So
afternoon
let's
or during the rain.
hypothetically looking at just Montemedi, which is a smaller community, and if you enlarge the scope to include White Bear, Delwood, Hugo, Lino Lakes, and got people to do that, we would be saving maybe 1 billion gallons of water a year.
Yeah, actually, Perry Jones told me that there are 13 or 14 communities that pump from the Prairie du Chien in the White Bear Lake area.
Right,
yeah,
yep,
that's a lot of water. So even if we go on to have some sort of augmentation program, you want to be using less water that you have to buy every year. And so, conservation just makes sense no matter what else we do.
Mm-hmm. So how are you going to get people to conserve water? What are some of the strategies that you plan to use?
Well, there are 2 pieces, and we'll let Patty talk about the education piece. But on the Race to Reduce piece, it's to create these home makeover water kits that people can buy very inexpensively. They'll pay for themselves in a few months and get to the Save the Lake water shower heads, the low-flow toilets, the aerators. Just being aware of those kinds of things will cut out uncounted millions of gallons of water without changing our lifestyle. And then being smarter about when and how to water your lawn, again, without changing our lifestyle, is millions and millions more gallons that will not have to be pumped from the aquifer.
Mm-hmm. And I know if we don't do something too, there's always the potential out there that we could be going over to surface water from St. Paul, which is, I'm not saying that's a bad idea, but it's extraordinarily expensive. It's about a $600 million project to bring everybody over to surface water. So, Patty, now we talked a little bit about Patty Hall, by the way, is the president of H2O for Life. I mentioned that earlier, but I just wanted to reemphasize that. Tell me a little bit about your organization and how you got into the local water conservation effort.
Okay, H2O for Life started as an organization to engage youth across the country in the global water crisis, to study the global water crisis and learn about water around the world. Mm-hmm. So our initial mission was to match schools with a school in a developing country. Kids got really excited about it, and they raised funds to help a school partner get water, sanitation, and hygiene education to their school. we realized very quickly that water isn't only an issue of developing world, it's an issue in our own backyards. And so we've developed curriculum for students to study how they can change the water use in their own communities. We have a grant
and that the schools use, the public schools.
in the public schools. So we have a grant
Interesting.
this year from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency.
Yeah.
They're providing a Green Corps volunteer for us for the entire year, which is amazing. And that person will be going out to the 18 to 20 schools that are located within White Bear and Matamidi and putting educational lesson plans into schools. Our
Yeah.
goal is to get individual students to reduce their own water footprint by 25% over the course of the school year by tracking their water, setting goals, and tracking their water 3 times over the year to show how many gallons they can save, just each individual. But our hope is that this raises the awareness for the whole community, because kids take what they learned home to their parents.
Yeah.
And it's all about getting everybody. Awareness is going to lead to
Now,
conservation.
is there any way to track the success of these programs? Is it because we're talking about, to a large extent, volunteerism? And is there a way to actually come up with what one would call the empirical data? And that would mean the data to show that this project is actually having a direct impact on water usage.
Well, for the schools, we have targeted lesson plans that actually involve kids filling out forms. It's going to be a homework assignment to track their water. They'll go back, they'll set goals, they'll make graphs comparing their water use to their neighbor and to their other
Okay,
classrooms
all
in the
right.
school. So by the end of the year, we should be able to calculate how many gallons have been saved by the 10,000 kids that we hope will participate in this
That's a
lesson
lot.
plan. Well, we're hoping we get at least
Yeah.
a foot into the door of all these schools. Maybe this year we'll hit a quarter of the kids. Maybe over time we'll hit more. Both superintendents are really on board with this. They realize that conservation of water is a huge issue and are willing to support it. So we're hoping
Yep.
that we can get teachers to take this on and really do a great job with it.
Great. Well, that's wonderful. And how is an H2O for Life, though, is always to look at global water issues?
Well, the global and the local go together.
Yeah, that's
so we
right.
can't really talk about global issues without
Right.
considering what's happening locally. And from everything that I've read in the investigations that I've done, if we don't change the way we use water, it's not sustainable for the future.
Yeah.
So we really need to start taking these proactive measures. And as Paul said, conservation's always a good thing. And our hope is that after we've done this in the schools for years, it's going to be automatic behavior. You won't think about turning off
Yep.
the water when you brush your teeth, it's automatic. You won't think about taking a shorter shower because it's what we do. And right now we don't have those behaviors in place. So it's education leads to behavior change, and that's what
Okay.
our hope is.
Yep. And Paul, getting back to your role on the water issue, what ideas or concepts do you have that we can get businesses and residents to look at their water usage? You mentioned earlier that we pump a lot more water out of the ground in the mid part of the summer than we do in other parts of the year. And are there any thoughts on how you plan to address that critical issue that goes beyond
Right.
just what's going to be happening with that wonderful program that you have in the
Thanks.
local schools?
Well, first of all, the 3 mayors of the communities, because Race to Reduce decided to start with the target of Matamidi, Birchwood, and White Bear Lake. Those 3 mayors have committed to get together and create so that we have one lawn sprinkling set of regulations in all 3 communities. So someone's
Well,
not
they
saying,
don't have that now, huh?
well, they each have their own, and we've already found out that the alternate day sprinkling does absolutely nothing, because the scientists will tell you you should only sprinkle once or maximum twice a week, if needed, twice a week, so that it soaks down and develops the roots better, and that gives you a better lawn anyhow. So we need to come up with a different program than this alternate day thing to really get people to have regulations on when they can or can't. I don't know if you've seen what's going on in California, but they're fining people $500 a day
Right.
for watering their lawn at the wrong time.
Right.
I don't think we're going to get to that level, but we do need to have some decent regulation about it. And then just, again, awareness and education. Good grief, we're not asking them inconvenience themselves. We're just asking them to be smart about watering the lawn.
Well, I can only speak for myself, but I've lived on and off in White Bear Township most of my life, and until I saw a small street sign, I didn't even know there were any regulations on when you could or couldn't water your lawn.
Right.
Well,
So-
the township didn't have metered water until, what, a year ago?
Yeah.
And the township people went crazy when they were starting to be charged for water. And as somebody who doesn't water their lawn,
Yeah,
I
I
was
don't
happy
either.
to see that, because it really makes it more equitable, and people need to start paying attention to water.
Yeah,
And
we
in-
really do. We need to have a system in place where people know that this is a finite resource that we need to use. Now, I want to shift the conversation a little bit and find out if voluntary water conservation efforts have ever worked in other parts of the country. And I would imagine that you've looked at that anyway. And both of you, what can you tell me about that? Have we ever seen an impact from that?
Well, there are some really great programs, few, unfortunately, but there are some great programs. And in Arizona, the city of Phoenix and the city of Tucson have had great success actually reducing their water use. California's got real mixed results. You could speak to that.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I'd like to say about our situation is that everybody, all stripes financially or politically or whatever, everybody wants to see White Bear Lake healthy again. So
Yeah.
that it's the one opportunity where everybody's on the same side of the coin, and that makes me be optimistic that we can get some volunteer improvement.
And I'll piggyback on that. To get ready for the launch to Race to Reduce, we've got a lot of links that we're going to put out to schools. And there are many programs throughout the United States where people have done big conservation efforts with
there have been.
businesses
There have been
and
then.
communities. And in every case, personal conservation does make a difference. So we all think that turning off the water, brushing your teeth, or having a low-flow toilet is a little bit, but you add that, multiply it, the number of times a day, the number of people that are doing it, and it adds up to a lot of water.
I
So-
had read someplace that an area in Massachusetts had reduced their water consumption by 40%. And that's a state where there's a lot of rainfall.
You know, and it's not that hard to reduce the amount of water you use. A lot of it's mindful thinking and
Yep.
paying attention to the water. And again, it's education, it's behavior change, it's awareness. And those are the key things that we want Race to Reduce to be putting in the forefront of everybody in these
Yeah.
communities, is to pay attention to what you're doing with your water.
Yep.
Right, because that's, up to now, there's no value on water because it's limitless. And
Right.
that's what everybody's starting to sense is no longer true.
Yeah. So the final thing I want to ask is, if somebody is interested in helping out, volunteering for your efforts, how do they get a hold of H2O for Life or your efforts, Paul?
Well, by October, we will have a Race to Reduce website. So
Okay.
we will be able to direct people to the Race to Reduce website. It will live within h2oforlifeschools.org. So when you click on our website, you will be directed to Race to Reduce. We will develop a web page for every school that's participating, so schools can share what they're doing in the community. We'll have interviews with the mayors. We'll have interviews with people like you on the web page, so people can go there to get the information that they really need to know what we're doing. We're looking for volunteers for the schools because teachers
Okay.
can't do this alone.
Yeah.
We would love to have volunteers that would go in and help those teachers create those graphs with kids and to do some after-school programs. We've got great ideas to put out to kids to build rain barrels, to build riparian walls where they're needed, to plant rain gardens. Lots of things that kids can do to help conserve water.
Well, it looks like, from my perspective anyway, you've got a really innovative program and something that is going to bring a lot of additional value to the White Bear area, and I appreciate your efforts in that area. So if somebody wants to get a hold of H2O for Life, how do they go about contacting
Okay.
H2O for Life?
Our website is www.h2o lifeschools.org, and perhaps we can put that on this interview at the end of that.
Okay.
And our number is 651-756-7577. We're located right on Highway 96 in the Birch Lake Professional Building. We'd love people to stop by and visit us,
Great.
share their ideas.
Thank you, Patty Hall and Paul Steinhouser, for joining me. This has been Your Business Matters. I'm Tom Snell. Thanks for watching.
You've been watching Your Business Matters. For more information on this program or the White Bear Area Chamber, visit www.whitebearchamber.com or call 651-429-8593.